Okay, my name is Bruno Tribioli. I'm now responsible for human resources at the Italian Space Agency. The Italian Space Agency takes care of industry, research, institute, and any part of the Italian structure that takes care about space activities in general. So I am an engineer. I've been responsible also for technical departments in my previous job. And now I moved to the human resources because I feel that we have a lot of space for improvement in this area. Well, the agency decided to implement CAF at the time of 2013 because a new law in Italy introduced the concept of performance management, and so we had the opportunity to decide the model to use to verify the organizational performance level. And we decided to go with CAF, mainly because it's European and it allows comparison with other European organizations. It is also quite simple if you compare with other more complicated models that we have in the quality area. So CAF is definitely the best we found. Well, the ISO 9000 is not was not and is not used in the governmental department. I have to say, in Italy, it's not so common, while it's quite used in the private companies. From a company point of view, it's quite understandable, but from a government point of view, it's not. So we don't use it. We have a lot of standard about quality in the space area, so it's quite common to have a technical quality standard in use, but not an organizational model. Normally in the private companies, the quality area is quite strength. And I have to say that the comparison is not possible with the public department because the difficult task is to find the real customer, while in a private company you have the customer in front of you any day, I have to say. In a private company, so it's quite simple to teach people to have the customer in mind. In a public company, it's not so simple because unless you are in the frontline office, the citizen is not exactly the customer. So the main difficulty I found coming here was to convince people that the citizen is the customer. Or if you don't see the citizen, at least your colleague is your internal customer. This process is not so simple to explain in the public environment. The first time we went through a self-assessment process here at the Italian Space Agency was 2013 at the end of the year, and we end middle of 2014 because we had a strong reorganization. So it took a long time. In fact, was different subgroups. Each focus group took care of one different criteria. So we had 5 different focus groups for the 5 main criteria of the enablers. We teach them through an external company that we selected with a bid. And the coordinator was myself. And I had a group of 5 persons helping me in organizing the different groups and tasks. Mainly we used, of course, discussion, but we used also the norm and total quality tools. The total amount of people was around 80 different people in the groups. And you consider that we are in total in the Italian Space Agency, we are 250. So 1/3 of the people was directly involved in the self-assessment. Well, the main difficulty at that time was that anyone had in mind the situation of the organization that was quite different from each other. So we had not a common understanding. Well, at the beginning was not so easy. I have to say that what is really important is the commitment from the top, because otherwise the process is too long and is a waste of time, I have to say. If you get a real commitment, so the process can be done without many major problems, and if you find a way to involve each one in the analysis, independently from the level that they have in the organization. I mean, it's not important that a people is answering from the top or from the lowest level. It is important that you put together people in the same group, coming from different area of the organization, in a way that the group is quite dishomogeneous, I have to say. So you get the complete picture in this way. Another small problem is time, because time is a scarce resource. So you have to be very effective, and in this way, a good plan can help. The plan must be very, very focused, and the time, let me say, you have to have a timekeeper that takes care of the time, and so this will help in the discussion. Otherwise, it is a sort of never-ending story. So anyone want to add something at the end? So the timekeeper is quite important also. And maybe another little help is that when you have finished subset, you have to inform anyone and to communicate to everyone what is going on. The communication was one of the item more critical at that time. So we have set a specific communication plan in which is described how to and when communicate what. That is, any 3 months, more or less, the president and the director general meet all the employees to describe what is going on. And every month we have a sort of small newspaper, internal newspaper. And more or less any 2 weeks, we have an internal meeting about the time plan. So to adjust the operations on CAF. This is quite vital, I have to say. It's one of the vital 2 or 3 actions you have to put in place to ensure the result. Well, time is important, and as we said, you must be effective. It's quite different if you are in the self-assessment group or if you are a normal employee answering questions. Next time, we are going to the second self-assessment now. We will use a questionnaire on a platform, on an online platform. So anyone can answer, and it takes, of course, 1 hour, no more. Then the self-assessment group will do the analysis. So it's quite different the time they have to invest on this process. I have to say the self-assessment group person will spend around 5 to 10% of their time for 2-3 months, more or less. So it's not a hard job. But you should ensure that this job is performed within the time frame you have assigned. Otherwise, as I said, it's a too long period. The second important thing is that you have to spend some time in the teaching. That is before using people to put questions or to analyze results. You have to put them into a room and teach them what is CAF, and to invest some time on total quality tools, for example, that are not always well known. It takes a couple of years, a couple of days, sorry, of course, no more. So it's not a quite impressive job, but it requires that the group you have selected is always there. So we had in the first time we had 14 different, we call them facilitator, that helped the focus group to make the analysis. Now we are going to have maybe 10 people. It's enough. 10 people for the self-assessment group. It's quite enough. In the previous experience, we had more direct participation because the focus group were composed by 80 different people. Now we are going to use another method, that is to send a questionnaire for all the employees to collect results and to analyze these results just with 10 persons. So it's a different approach because, of course, this is the second time we have got a lot of experience, and we can use the first analysis to make just comparison. We are going not from scratch. We have a result from 3 years ago, and now we have the possibility to compare the differences. It's not important to have 80 people again in the classroom. At the end of the first self-assessment, we had a meeting, a sort of convention with all the employees and the president and the board of directors and the director general, analyzing all the results in a couple of hours, no more. And anyone could have questions, could put questions, could have answer. So this was there was an open discussion. After that, we launched an improvement plan on the more critical areas. That is 3 different projects on the criteria that were not so good as we thought before, like leadership, implementation of the strategy, and people results, that is in terms of indicators and targets. And this plan went through 2 years, 1 year and a half, let me say. And now we are going to the second part of the job, that is a new self-assessment. During all this period, we continuously communicate the state of the art. And so this is quite important, because one risk you have in this quite long project, because organizational projects are always quite long, because you have to change the culture. The risk is that you lose the attention of the people. So communicating as much as possible will result in a more deep involvement of the people. That's a good question. Leadership is always a tricky point, because normally, if you ask a manager to vote this criteria, the results are normally quite different if you ask employee. But as we put together in the same focus group both managers and collaborators and employees, at the end, I guess that the final result and the final score was the right one. That is, also the managers accepted that there were a lack of real leadership in the groups, and this is quite important to to try to have the same point of view, because otherwise, of course, the project goes bad. On the leadership specifically, we have set an improvement project that is to put all the managers at the beginning in a new educational way. That is, we have set up a training process about communication, team working, team building, change management, and so on for them. We have finished now 4 different modules of this training project. Then we have moved this training to the employees. So anyone can have the same approach and the same culture on what is leadership. It's not only top down, but it's also bottom up. Well, the main difference between before and after the first self-assessment and the first improvement project plan is that before, anyone had its own idea about strength areas and weakness areas, and no one had the same idea, of course. Now we have, we have a common perception of what is good and what is bad, and which type of investment we have to do in the different areas to improve the organization. So the main result is that everyone has the same picture, the same vocabulary, and the same understanding. We have changed different things. Maybe from a processes point of view, I have to say the agency was not so bad. In fact, the criteria about processes was the best one, because we have tracked any process before CAF, I have to say, and we have put on the platform, electronic platform, so anyone can access each type of procedure, modules, process. So the main problem here was about culture, I have to say. So the technology culture, that is something very strong in the agency, I guess due to the fact that we take a lot of important technological projects, while the culture is a bit, I have to say, anyone can do anything alone. And this is not what we want to do. And so the important things now, it's more than the processes, is that the decision-making process is something that involves everyone in any department, whilst before was not exactly this way. So the main practical item that we have implemented is that the main decisions are made together. It's not performed alone by the manager. So I have to say this is the best practical result we obtained in our organization. Well, the main obstacle at the beginning of a process like that is that there is a sort of skepticism, I have to say. When you launch quite important organizational process like this, normally 25% of people deny the problem and 25% of people go enthusiastically. But 50% of the people remain to look which result we'll have and who is the winner. So you have to convince this 55% to follow you. And the only way to do this is to involve as much as possible anyone in the whole process. It's not simple, but we are not so many, so we are an understandable number of people to manage. And the second item that can be an obstacle is when you change the top manager, because in the public environment, any 4 years, at least in Italy, we change the management at the top level. The problem could be that the newcomers don't care about, not CAF, don't care about organization improvement. So this could be a big problem. And you have to invest a lot of time to convince the newcomers from the top. That is quite important to maintain the process as much as stable as possible, because CAF requires a lot of time. I have to say 3-5 years to get the best results. And of course, you have to invest any day in this activity, because it requires a continuous exchange of ideas and with other colleagues. So normally the culture change requires more than 3-5 years. I have to say maybe 10. And this implies that the organization must be stable. That's not always the case. Well, after the self-assessment process, you get the picture with scores for the criteria. For each criterion, you can investigate what is the good part, what is the not good part. And based on the scores, you can choose where to invest time and maybe some money to improve. As the strengths and the weaknesses are quite are so many, you have to decide. And the important things is to decide few items to improve. Otherwise, you get out of control. And we decided 3 main projects, because we had the weaknesses on, as I said, maybe on leadership, on strategy implementation, and on people results. I mean, the indicators and targets that takes care of what is going on the people. And these 3 main projects were assigned to 3 different groups with a leader. The groups were very small, 3-4 persons, no more. And they had the objective to perform an improvement within 1 year, 1.5 years, depending on the difficulty, because leadership is quite a big problem. It's quite a long process, whilst maybe strategy implementation requires just procedure adjustment and not so a big effort. People results takes care of we have a lot of data, and we had to invent a system to put in a structured way and to communicate to any employee what is going on people. So it's not so difficult. It was just a matter of invent a new platform system on which to put information. So it depends on the project you have to launch, but I have to insist that you have to choose few items, otherwise it's quite difficult to implement in the right way, and also because it needs a lot of effort in terms of time for 2-3 persons that are dedicated to that. Social responsibility is quite important, and it's not always easy to measure the impact of your organization. We are in a better position because the Italian Space Agency takes a project to collect information, especially from Earth observation. that are quite useful for helping the citizen in general. I have to say that from the space you can look to the heart, and have application that helps people to save other people, for example, or to save the nature, or any other intervention direct on the earth. So from this point of view, we are in a small advantage, let me say. We have also a dedicated project for training. That is, we invest a big amount of our money on training at high level. I mean, people coming from different parts of Italy that comes here and are educated to space and to the impact that our attitude can do on the heart. So from this point of view, we consider that the Italian Space Agency has a social message to send to anyone. Well, the next self-assessment is also started. We started 1 month ago. We have a new training in place for different persons. Some of the previous person that took care of the first self-assessment went outside the agency. So we have now a new set of people, that is 10 persons, that are going through a complete training course on CAF. And they have studied the criteria. We are in parallel, we are sending, maybe this week, we are sending a questionnaire to all the employees. They can answer on a platform, electronic platform, just clicking some buttons. And the questions are 40, more or less, and are questions covering all the model, all the 5 criteria, let me say, all the enablers. This 10 person of the self-assessment group will take the results of the questionnaire and will compare the results of this perception survey with the data effect and fact that we have, so to have an idea which is the gap in terms of what is real and what is perceived. And the difference will be something telling us that we don't maybe communicate enough in some area, or maybe we have a lot of potentiality that we don't put together to have the better result. So at the end of this analysis, we will take, as usual, the few critical area, and we will launch a new improvement plan, I guess 2 or 3 sub-projects, no more, for a couple of years. At the end of this, we will make another self-assessment, that is the 3rd one. We hope to have some fast improvement in this month. Well, from these experiences, I have to say that one of the most critical part is you have to convince someone to follow you. Someone, I mean, few people that really believe in the project, starting from the top management, of course. You have to teach them deeply, and then you can start with the pilot project, for example. We didn't do this way only because I was experienced in this job before, but I can suggest a pilot project. I mean, you choose a criteria and you start with a very small group by testing your process. When you are confident, you can export this pilot to the other criteria. this could be a way to do that can help avoiding errors. The other one is to take the time as short as possible, because as the time passes, you lose the credibility of the project. It doesn't help if the time is too long. So this is another suggestion, to take time quite short. Don't be perfect, accept errors, but goes on. This is the third one.